What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Kicking It with Onyekachi, powered by the DC Voice. I'm your host, Costa Analyst, and today, we have chairperson of the ANC 3A overlooking the McLean Gardens and Cathedral Heights area neighborhood, Ward 3 district. We got ANC Chair Thaddeus Bradley Lewis. Thank you so much for coming in and kicking with me, man. I appreciate it.
Hello, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. And obviously, before we dive into what you do on a day to day, I'd love
Mhm.
to get a little background on your story and kind
Sure.
of what connects you to DC. I know that you are George Washington, class of 2010. Are you
Mhm.
from DC or from the DMV area, or was that kind of your first introduction to DC?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on how broadly you define the DMV. I wouldn't necessarily say that I've always lived in the DMV. I grew up part of the time in St. Mary's County, Maryland.
Right,
So
right.
down in Lexington Park, near the Patuxent River. Um, and then I also lived in Severna Park, which is just south of Baltimore, in between
Right.
Baltimore and Annapolis. So I lived there, and then I went to GW, and I've been in DC ever since 2007 when I was a
Oh, wow.
freshman at GW.
Wow, wow. And what kind of made you want to stay? I mean, you've been in the Maryland area for pretty much all, if not most of your life. So what kind of had you, as you're trying to, spread your wings and fly, what kind of
Yeah.
had you just go up the street to DC and kind of set up roots there?
So going to GW, I love the city. I love spending the time, especially kind of like being, really in the city. Living
Right,
where I do now, I live really close to AU. And it's kind of like its own world over here. But when going to GW, and I think it's the same if you go to like UDC or Howard or Georgetown to an extent. But being really down there, I spent all my time in the district.
right,
You go out all over. H Street was really kind of starting, in the early 2010s. What it
right,
is
right,
now, I mean, it was there, but it really started to become a place that you wanted to go to. Shaw didn't even really exist.
really,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there were a lot. There are so many places that were like the hot, cool places to go in DC that aren't around. I mean, it's really changed a lot in the
right.
last like 15 to 20 years. There were just a lot of places. I had a lot of friends who loved going to town on U Street.
Yeah, yeah.
There are some places that are still holding out. Like Ultra Bar was a place
Oh,
that
really? Ultra
people,
Ball. I think
yeah,
Ultra Ball was a pretty big spot when I was in college. So, I mean, I
yeah,
graduated
yeah.
in
No,
2020, so a good 10 years after you graduated.
it's definitely held on. It's been around there. It's been popular. I mean, but I just loved being in the city.
Yeah.
So I graduated in 2010. My first job out of college, my first like real job out of college was working for Apple in the Georgetown store
Oh,
that
nice.
opened up like it was the first DC store, before they opened up at the Carnegie Library. But that was my first job. I was there for a little bit. Like I was going to school and working at the same time over my last semester. And then after I did that, after I graduated, I ended up getting a full-time job that took me out into Northern Virginia. But I loved being in DC.
Right.
And I've been in DC. So for after GW, I moved out to near, I guess, like, I'm not actually sure what neighborhood you would call it. It was, like, around Bloomingdale and Eckington,
Okay.
a place right along, Monroe,
Right. Okay.
not too far from, the medical center and
Right. Right.
hospital and children's. So I was there for a number of years, and then I moved in with my now wife, who had an apartment or a condo in Columbia Heights. We were there for a number of years, and then we moved out to a bit of a bigger condo out in McLean Gardens, not too long before the pandemic started. We moved in February of 2019.
Right. So
Uh,
you're currently in the ward that you are helping
mhm.
regulate and oversee and facilitating part of the ANC.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So we're a new ANC. Actually, we didn't exist before
Wow.
the beginning of last year. Every 10 years, when we do the census, We also redistrict the ward boundaries as well as the advisory neighborhood commission boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
right? By law, each ANC commissioner is supposed to represent somewhere between 1,900 to 2,100 people. And that's
Right.
based off of the census information. So they do that every 10 years. So the census this time around, it happened a while ago in 2020, but because of delays, with the pandemic and everything that was going on, they didn't end up redrawing the boundaries until they were ready for the last election. So 2022.
Oh wow.
And when they redistrict, when they redraw these lines, sometimes they will create new commission areas because you just have so much population and commissions, they can only be so big before it becomes difficult to really give everyone a voice, right?
Right.
If you are, and we do have some really big commission areas, not just in Ward 3, but I think across the district. There are
Mm-hmm.
some commission areas that'll have, 7, 8, 9 commissioners.
Wow.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot
Yeah.
of, residents or constituents who have concerns, who have issues that are important to them, and there's only so much time in a meeting, right? Unless you're having your meetings go for 5 hours at a time. But even then, you're not really, in my opinion, you're
You're
not
pretty
really
much
doing.
talking in circles. Yeah.
Yeah, you have so many people that are trying to give voice to their 1,900 to 2,100 people that it becomes really difficult, to
Right.
do everybody justice. So they'll, when you have so many people in an area, you'll create new commission areas so that you can kind of get back to ensuring that everybody is being represented adequately, that, one person, one vote, giving people the power that they should have in their local political affairs. So we have a new commission in our area that came from parts of a lot of other commission areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have my district came out of ANC 3A, or excuse me, ANC 3C, which mostly is centered around like Cleveland Park, around
Right.
Connecticut Avenue.
Right. Right.
Goes all the way down to like Woodley Park, the zoo, and all of that.
Okay.
So when they redistricted, I I was happy that we were going to be in a new commission area where we could really focus on what's going on over around us, around
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin Avenue.
Right.
We have a lot of new development that's happened over the last couple of years. Um, Starting around the time when I moved over here, there was a big redevelopment called Cathedral Commons,
Okay.
which has a giant and lots of apartment
Right.
spaces. And then as I became commissioner at the end of 2022, or at the end of 2023, coming into 2024, City Ridge, where DC's first Wegmans is located, that
Mm-hmm.
all came online. And then we have another development that's immediately north of City Ridge called Upton Place, which also used to be a huge like Fannie Mae building. That's going
Nice.
to have hundreds more people. We have a lot of multifamily housing. I mean, usually when people think of Ward 3, they think of a lot of single family housing, and rightfully so. There's a lot of single family housing in Ward 3.
Yeah.
But we do have density in some spaces, and most of it is concentrated around Connecticut Avenue, where UDC is located, Van Ness, Chevy Chase, Cleveland Park, Woodley Park. And then
Right.
along Wisconsin Avenue, historically, most of it has been up in like Friendship Heights,
Right.
but more and more we're seeing more density further down the corridor, and it's mostly around our commission area. So we represent a lot of people in apartments.
And I would say with the newly designated ward, right? And I assume this is also probably an unprecedented position for you because there isn't, I guess, a lot of history specifically for the area in which that your constituents are right now. So coming into that, what sort of goals did you have? What was the first, I guess, day order of business when you
Mhm.
came in, realizing that this is a new ward as well as a new position and a bunch of people now, as you said, that's becoming more and more highly densely populated
Mhm,
as these new multifamily and these new apartment complexes are being developed in the area.
mhm. So, the biggest thing for me is that across the city, we have a huge issue with housing,
Right,
not having enough housing. We need more density to meet the demand for housing so that people aren't being priced out of the communities that they live in,
right,
historically or even in the short term, right? Here in McLean Gardens, especially, we have a lot of seniors who live on fixed incomes,
mm-hmm,
right? So if you have these crazy increases in the cost of housing and the cost of living, generally speaking, it poses a huge challenge and it makes it really difficult for people to get by. So for me here in Ward 3, where traditionally speaking, we haven't seen the growth and the uptake in affordable housing that we have in other parts of the city, that not only do we have this density, not only do we create this density, but we create the circumstances in which it can thrive. The people
right,
living here can thrive. So, what does that mean? That means ensuring that we have the transit access needed because we don't want a ward, a commission area where if you want to live here, you need to own a car.
right,
And that's a challenge for a lot of parts of our ward.
right,
Along with the single family housing and the lower density, we don't have the access to public transit that other parts of the city, like in Ward 1 and Columbia Heights and Ward 6, down by the Navy Yard, we don't have the
right,
access to public transit that those areas have.
mm-hmm,
It makes it difficult for somebody to wanna live here and not have to invest in having their own car
right,
or vehicle. So, as we grow this density, as we have more housing, we need the transit access so that people can move here and not need that car. That
mm-hmm,
they can rely on a bus, that they can get to the metro, that they can do the things that they wanna do. They can have enjoy the amenities that we have across the city without having to have a personal vehicle. So
right,
that's one part of it. Another part of it is having schools.
right,
School, being able to have your kids go to a school where you can trust that they're getting the right attention, that they have a good learning environment, that the facilities that they're learning in are being well maintained is absolutely vital. You if you want to live here, if you're young and you come here and you want to live here for a long time, chances are that's something that you're going to have to think about real hard.
right,
So being able to ensure that is receiving the care and the funding that is needed for, especially DCPS to thrive is immensely important to our area.
and I would say as you also have your professional experience, right, and working, you're CEO of Synergetics. Did I say that did I say that
Yeah,
correctly?
Synergetics. Yep.
Right, right, exactly. And also working with Enocean Enterprises, right? How does that
Mhm.
professional experience and working with teams and working with people, managing people, and kind of also problem solving in
Yep.
that in the IT world or tech world, how does that kind of allow you to transfer some of those skills to your position as a chairperson for the ANC
Mhm.
3A?
So professionally, the experience that I've gained through my work life that is of most benefit as being a commissioner and a chairperson is working with a lot of different government agencies
Mm,
and stakeholders. The work that I do for both Synergetics and the work that I've done for Notion involves working. We do a lot of work with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, the
right,
U.S. agency, the federal agency. I think ANCs are hyper local. That's what they
right,
call our positions because we're like the closest connection between our constituents, the residents of our neighborhoods, and the rest of the district government.
Mhm.
And it can be really difficult. You know, when you have a full-time job, when you've got a family to take care of, and you've got concerns that involve your district government, it's hard to first have the time or find the time to figure out who do I need to call, who do I need to send an email to, who do I need to, tweet at in order to figure out what's going on.
Right.
But then also to know, okay, well, if this doesn't work, then I need to go to this person, or I need to go to
Right.
this agency, or I need to make this phone call or send this email. That's asking a lot of a person who has a whole life
Right.
to know how to do that and to have the patience and, the commitment to seeing something through. It can be really discouraging sometimes,
Right. And to be
you
okay
know?
with maybe not getting an answer or not finding an answer in the time that they need it.
Yeah, yeah, figuring out what battles to fight and how.
Right.
That takes a lot, and my work experience has given me a lot of insight into addressing those types of issues. You know,
Right.
how do I interact with this agency? Or how do I know when it's time to say, okay, this person isn't going to help me or isn't capable of helping me. So
Right.
now it's time to do this or talk to that person,
Right.
take this measure in order to
Right.
pursue resolution or get an answer. So that's a big piece of my professional life that has been really important to serving as an ANC commissioner and as a chairperson. Organizing people, putting this stuff together, it takes a lot, and you have to recognize, all right, how do I get help? What kinds of questions do I need to ask in order to get the assistance that I need in order to serve my constituents well and to give the commission its best chance at success?
Right. And to backtrack a little bit, what kind of drove you, what impassioned you
Mhm.
to join this ANC? Like as we discussed before, this is a newly formed ANC. What kind of, and it's not easy to be that guy. Like I'm a middle school program director, so I can only imagine 1900, 2100 middle schoolers coming to me asking me for a bunch of answers, and I know I don't got it all. So what kind of empowered you to say like this is something that you
Yeah.
want to undertake and really put your best foot forward in?
Yeah. So it started with a couple of things. When we moved here, when my wife and I moved to McLean Gardens, we already knew that we wanted to take an active role in serving our community,
Mhm.
especially in a space like this. McLean Gardens is pretty special in that I don't know, if you're kind of wonky about like housing policy and things like that. A lot of people talk about what's called like the missing middle.
Okay.
And when they talk about the missing middle, they're referring to sort of like what's in between single family homes or townhouses and like high rise apartment buildings.
Mm.
What's the combination or what's the middle ground where people can afford to raise a family? Like they're not going to have a detached home in this
Right.
city for a reasonable amount of money. But where can they find space, enough space, so that you could raise a family at a reasonable price? And I think McLean Gardens is kind of like a perfect sort of indication of what missing middle is and can be. We have 21 acres and there are 29 buildings and there are over 700 residents here or
Wow.
700 units. Right? But it's not a high rise. There are units that, have 2 or 3, even 4 bedrooms
Mhm.
so that there's an opportunity for people to have a child or 2,
Right.
raise them, put them through school, and not have to make a really hard decision about like, "Oh, well, you know, if you've got a 2 bedroom or a 1 bedroom, the kids get to a certain age and, well, we can't afford a house in the district. So now we have to decide between leaving the district and, you know, taking on a mortgage that's hard to afford.
Right.
you know, McLean Gardens offers sort of a middle way.
Wow.
And because of that, we have, I think for our area, a special diversity of, seniors who have been here, who live on fixed incomes, like I say, who have been here for years and years. And we have a lot of young families
Wow.
who are attracted to the area because we have good schools and there are lots of nice amenities, lots of nice green spaces. We run right along the border of Glover Archibald Park, and you can walk the trail all the way down to the C&O Canal, and you could walk all the way out to Pennsylvania if you wanted to.
Oh, wow.
So lots of attractive things about where we live,
Right.
and there's an affordability that you're not going to find in very many other places around here.
Nice.
So the important thing for us is balancing that, right? How do we continue to foster a community that appeals to both young families and seniors, all kinds of different people who are just trying to make it the best they can and
Right.
afford to live in this district, which has increasingly become a more difficult thing to do.
It's nationwide, I'm saying, man. Goodness gracious, it's getting
Yeah.
bad.
So I started out by participating in the condo association board for
Okay,
McLean.
okay.
So McLean Gardens has a condo association board. So I was on there for a year through the pandemic, which was a pretty wild time to be on a board,
Right.
a small community. And then in the election season of like 2022 to 2023, we had a fairly historic situation in that our incumbent council member, Mary Che, decided not to run for reelection.
Ah.
In the district, a lot of council members can hold on really effectively. You
So have
know,
I heard. Yeah, I've been in
yeah,
my research. I've learned that there's been a council member that's been in the Senate delegate for like 50 something years now.
yep, yeah,
Yeah.
no. I mean, you know, for starters, we have a city that really only has one effective political party,
Right.
in the Democratic Party. So, and Mary Che was a Democrat. So she had been in the position for nearly 20 years,
Oh, wow.
right? So when somebody decides to leave that position, it can be a once in a many decade
Yeah.
opportunity for somebody to become a council member, right? So a lot of people were running. And, being in our community and also around Ward 3, you couldn't help but stumble over somebody who was running in the Democratic primary for that council spot.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Being somebody who had experience having been on the board for our condo association and also recognizing that we do have a somewhat unique demographic in McLean Gardens, I felt like it was a really important time to ensure that all of the people who could have become that council member heard what mattered to my community.
Mm-hmm.
So I organized a candidate forum for all of the people who were running for that council member seat.
Right.
And then as a result of that, I started to learn more about the redistricting process that I told you about earlier. And knowing that our commission was going to be a brand new commission, right? With no history, no background, no bank account, no bylaws, all the things that, commissions have in the
Right.
district, starting from zero, right?
Wow.
Uh, Recognizing that, I felt like it was really important to get involved to ensure that we were well represented in this new commission.
Mm-hmm.
That this commission wouldn't struggle to find its voice, to address issues that are important to our constituents, that it would, be able to cross all the T's and dot all the I's and, get to representing everybody in our commission area.
Well, I'm glad that you stepped up and you did it, because often when it comes to politics, people have a lot of complaints but not enough action. So thank you for being the one to inform your candidates about what's going on, and then looking upon yourself to say maybe I can be the one to be a voice as well. So thank you for leading that charge. And before we head out of here, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, as I said, what are you talked about this before as well, but if you can jot down just three things that you love about Ward 3, and some of your favorite things, I guess, about living in Ward 3.
Mhm. Number 1, I think for me is definitely the green space, being
Yeah.
able to get out and about, and, my appreciation for that is definitely, um, in large well, a large part of it is just going through the experience of the pandemic.
Mm.
When it was difficult for people to get out, to get exercise, to be safe, it was really great for me and my wife to be able to just go out, on a trail and get exercise that way. So
Mhm.
it's a really important resource that we have, an amenity. So that's definitely one thing. The second thing, I think just the community. It can be super difficult, especially in the super dense areas of our city, where there are a lot of people who are, maybe passing through, only going to be in the city for a few months, a few years, either for school or for a job, you know, maybe not super keyed in on local issues. It can be really difficult in this city, I think,
Right.
because the national politics, the big politics, suck up so much air.
Right.
And
Yeah.
sometimes, I think a lot of people don't really think or learn a lot about how things work locally
Yeah.
in our politics. But around here, I'll say, with a little bit of a wink, for better and for worse, we have a lot of people who are keyed into what's going on locally.
And that's good. Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of part and parcel with like the sense of community here. A
Yeah.
lot of people want this area to do well, and I want new arrivals, people who are being attracted to here, by the green spaces, by the schools, various things, to enjoy the decision that they made by moving here and live here well. So second thing definitely is the sense of community. Third thing, I think that there's a lot of experience and knowledge. The district has such an impressive, professional force. There are so many
Right.
people who are amazing experts in the fields in which they work, have had such broad experience in this city, across the country, around the world. It's amazing when you get to see that uh that experience, that, intellectual power committed to some of the challenges that we face, even on a local level. For
Mhm.
example, we the district is going through a system called building energy performance standards. And
Okay.
it's all about reducing our carbon footprint. And a large part of, the district's carbon footprint is energy spent to heat buildings, provide energy, electricity,
Right.
gas, all
Right.
of those things. That's a huge part of it. So right now we're going through these cycles where our buildings, multifamily housing, in addition to commercial, are reducing their energy consumption to accomplish those goals. And for McLean Gardens, it's a big communal effort, right? Because it's 21 acres. It's a lot
Right.
of
Yeah.
buildings, a lot of people. So we need a lot of good ideas and a lot of different perspectives to make things happen. And for me, it's been amazing to see some of the people who led sustainability efforts in other parts of the country and
Wow.
around the world to come and say, "Hey, here's something that worked on the other side of the globe," or, "Here's something that worked, on the other side of the country, and
Right.
we can implement it, right here in McLean Gardens in the District of Columbia."
No, that's beautiful. And like I said, like one, thank you once again for all the work that you're doing with the ANC and all the work that you're doing just on your day-to-day life and just being you as an individual because like I said, it takes a really big personality, a very big mentality to step up and try to be the change that they're trying to seek. So thank you once again for doing that. Do you have any final updates or any final remarks that before we close out of here?
No, well, I'll just say, elections are really important and they're always important, but they're especially important because there are a lot of really big issues going on in the district, that I think certainly deserve people's attention. It's easy, like I said, to kind of let local politics just happen. But when too many people make that decision, uh, a lot of policies, you know, uh, a lot of policies are going to be implemented based on a very vocal minority.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If
Right.
too many people are just kind of looking the other way. Um, we've got housing issues, we've got mental health issues in this city, we have public safety issues that really deserve a lot of attention from the people who call the District of Columbia home. And as we're going through the election season, it's really important to pay attention to those issues and to make sure that the people who are looking to represent you are representing the things that matter to you and in the way that you would like them to represent you.
And thank you for that. Like I always agree that the local elections definitely, as you said, go a lot of unnoticed. As you said, a lot of people just let them happen. So thank you for that call to action, especially as we do near a lot of very important elections in this election cycle. So thank you once again. And thank you guys for watching this another amazing episode of Kick with Nakachi. You can check out this episode at the DC Voice on Instagram and YouTube as well. You can check out Mr. Thaddeus Bradley Lewis. If you're ever in the district, ever in Ward 3, be sure to say hello to him. If you ever want to send him an email, work with him. As you guys can see, he's a very charming and amazing individual. You guys will not be disappointed. Thank you again, Mr. Bradley Lewis, for coming in and kicking it with me. And I hope you have a good night, sir.
Happy to do it. Have a good night.
Of course.